It's all part of the big game, all part of the big PR game.
Yeah, you do get the sense this is very much about his career trajectory and his plan for himself. That's what this is all about, really.
Oh, well, that's fair enough. He hasn't been honest with the integrity thing, and that's what's...
Yeah, that was the one, wasn't it? That quote was...
From the QPR fans. I mean, I got no problem with him doing that. Fair enough. But don't say in a month, and then I've got integrity, loyalty, I've got something to finish here, and then jump ship. That's what's...
100%.
West London Sports seem to know things I don't know. Do you know what I mean? So there you go.
Hello, and thanks for joining us for this West London Sport QPR podcast. Usual lineup this week. I've got West London Sports Ian McCullough and former QPR striker Kevin Gallen here with me. Lads, I don't think we'd be getting together again so soon. Obviously, the season's not restarted yet after the World Cup, but as you all watching and listening will know by now, QPR are looking for a new manager again following Mick Beale's departure to Glasgow Rangers. And just before we start as well, I just want to say if you want your business or your message to be heard by 2,000 to 4,000 people a week, then you can advertise with us. Just email info@westlondonsport.com. Well, Kev, we'll come on to what's next in a bit and where QPR go from here. But first of all, just your reaction to everything that's happened over the last, I suppose, sort of week or so when the reports first started coming out that he might go. You're disappointed, relieved, angry? How are you feeling about all this?
I'm not angry. First things first, can we just comment on the Ian's top, which is a lovely top. Not petty one.
Really nice.
No, I'm not angry. A little bit disappointed, only because of what was said a month ago regarding integrity, and I'm staying. But you can't have a man. When was it last Monday? I think I texted the guys on this pod that when Van Bronckhorst lost his job, I said, what did I say? I said Mick Beale will get that along those lines, because I heard
you're in the know, mate.
Pardon?
In the wrong job. I said you're in the know. You're in the wrong job.
Yeah, and I knew that because I've heard whispers that he wanted the Glasgow Rangers job. But the thing which is, you can't have a manager who's always looking over his shoulder if he thinks there's something better, and you hold to ransom. You know, it's not that you can't have a manager who's always like, oh, the next thing, I'm moving on. Look, young players have come to the club. I'd say Tim, because of his connections at Aston Villa. Maybe Laird, came to the club because maybe Mick Beale sold him a story. The players that have come in the summer, they've been sold a story that, they're building a project here, or we're trying to get promotion. I feel sorry for them. They've been they will probably be let down. And the disappointing thing for me is basically you get a new manager coming in now and everyone starts again, where I know we hadn't had a good last month of the month just gone, where is it 1 win in 5 or 1 point in 5? It hasn't been great since the Wolves connection. But if you've got a manager who keeps getting his head turned, I think it's best he leaves. If you don't want to be here, you don't want to be at QPR, go and get someone in who wants to be at QPR and move on and move forward stronger.
Yeah, exactly. Because you mentioned the Wolves stuff there, and obviously that was only just over a month ago that all that came about. But I mean, he obviously said that it came out of the blue and it came out of nowhere. I mean, anyone that knows kind of football knows that these things don't just come out of the blue, do they? There's always a reason for these things coming about. You mentioned the quote there, obviously loyalty and integrity. That's the big one that's come out after, and not being the first one to run away from the ship when it gets a bit tough. And obviously that lasted about a month. And I mean, even speaking to you, Ian, about a month ago, he was talking about, saying it's a long-term project and, everyone needs to calm down. I'm looking forward to things just calming down now so he can get on with the job, and he's going to be the manager at QPR. And, it just shows, I suppose, again, that there isn't any loyalty and integrity in football apart from those who support the club, really.
Absolutely. And as you can see, for those who listen to this on a podcast, I'm sacrificing professionalism today by wearing a very old QPR Celtic style retro kit that was worn many years ago. That's my way of my feelings about what Michael Beale's done. I mean, personally, from a I've sat in all of his press conferences he joined, and feel a little bit hoodwinked, really. And going back to what Kevin just said about the players, there's probably a squad of players there thinking a similar thing. All the messages he said about project, we're just starting out here, and we know where we want to be. I'm only 4 months into the job. Let's see where we are in January. And all of a sudden, he's been here 4 months. He's been the favourite for the Villa job at one stage, the favourite for the Wolves job at one stage, and now he's the Glasgow Rangers manager. And you sort of go, how's this happened? Because let's be frank about it. The record since he left is what? It's okay. But the reality is he's inherited a really good situation from Mark Warburton, and the players that have, Kenneth Powell and Ethan Laird aside, the players that have done the business for him this season, well, he inherited them from Mark Warburton. So it's not like he's come along at QPR and built some amazing side. And the other fact is that, if Steven Gerrard is still at Aston Villa and they're sitting at kind of 7th or 8th in the Premier League, is Mick Beale going to be the Glasgow Rangers manager? Probably not. But this is a guy, he's banging on about not, moving to London, greatest city in the world, good to be home and that. But his family have kept their house in Birmingham. And he's saying yesterday now, this is where my family really want to be, Glasgow's home, etc. Well, it just seems all along he was using this job at QPR as leverage to get the Glasgow Rangers job. I mean, really, it's an utter no-no in managerial circles is that when a manager's under pressure, you don't turn up publicly at a stadium. And he's done exactly that at Ibrox the other week. From Broncos, under the pump, and there's Michael Beale there, posting on Instagram, guest of honour at Ibrox, good to be back, etc., etc. It's not a good look, is it? Now, in his defence...
No, it's a terrible look.
In his defence, that trip was organised kind of 6 weeks earlier. But if that is the case, don't be plastering it all over Instagram.
Yeah, that's the bad thing, isn't it? That he's advertised it so much.
It's wrong, and really, in 21 games as professional manager, now he's in charge at Rangers. So good luck to him. He might be the best thing to happen to English football since sliced bread, but it's a pretty small sample size, really, isn't it? And it just seems he's got his own PR machine that's got him from Aston Villa to here, and now to Glasgow Rangers in the space of 6 months. So it just seems all along his plan was to get back to Glasgow, and he's been successful in that. And the club get criticised quite rightly sometimes for things that have done, but they've not done a lot wrong here, really. And I feel quite sorry for it's destabilised the playing staff, the fan base, people running the club. It's a bad look, isn't it? It really is a bad look. And, we all know there's no loyalty in football. The only fact that you said, Dan, the only people that are loyal are fans, and everyone looks after number one. But honestly, I can't think ever of a manager who's taken a job as a former number two to become a number one and is in a job 4 months and moving on to pastures new. People get sacked, fair enough, but it's unheard of. I think, racking my brain, the last time I can remember it happening was Steve Bruce doing it to Palace. He left Birmingham as a player, went to Palace, a manager, had a good start, and then sort of before Christmas, he was managing Birmingham City again. That's the only time I can remember it happening. And Steve Bruce was a much more household name than Michael Beale. But, yeah, so I've had my little rant now. And
you got it off your chest.
Going back to, and I agree with you, considering I'm not here to slag Mick Beale off. If he wants to go to Glasgow Rangers, that's up to him. And I actually agree and totally. I mean, turning up at Glasgow Rangers, whatever, when the manager's under pressure, that is not a good look. But regarding the playing and the taking over a good squad, you're 100% right. I still believe QPR, when everyone's fit and playing well, are a top six side. I do believe with 2 or 3 injuries for being a top 10 side. The one thing he did do that was different from Warburton last season, and that was playing a back four. So other than that, the style of play is exactly the same. Your best player is still Willock. I think there's been upgrade on the right back and the left back. Now, whether that is to do with the recruitment or Mick Beale, we don't know. But other than that, nothing's really changed from last season. So look, it is unheard of. 20 games. I think this time last season we were in the same position or better than this season. Fair play to him. Let's move on. Let's try and get someone in who can continue the same sort of style of play. But where you're right about the destabilisation of the players, look, a manager comes in, and I've seen it loads of times, and they have different ideas on football, and they have different ideas on what they want and who they want to play and how they want to play. Now, the next manager has to try and get the best out of his better players, and we'll have to wait and see who that is.
Yeah, you're totally right, and I think the Lius and the Batia made a big song and dance about how they went through this rigorous process to get to Mick Beale and what they wanted, and this happens all the time that clubs lose their managers mid-season, but manage to kind of continue the succession of how the way the team plays. Brentford have done it when Dean Smith left to go to Villa. Southampton have done it numerous times. Brighton have done it to a degree with the managers they've had. And if that process is as rigorous as they're all making it out to be, then they should. I know they've got shortlists drawn up from the previous searches they've had. Then you should have.
It wasn't that long ago, so hopefully it ain't changed too much.
Well, they had a shortlist drawn up when he was linked with the Wolves job, so it's reasonably fresh. And let's come on, we know how football works. There would have been hundreds of people putting their hands up for this job. It's a pretty decent job still.
Yeah. So
there'll be no shortage of people that want it, but it's about finding that sort of person that continues to play in a similar way, knows the players, knows the squad, knows the division, and you'd hope it's a fairly reasonably seamless transition. We're not going to get.
They're going to go for a manager, a young. This is my opinion. They're going to go for a very similar situation where they're going to get a youngish coach, stroke manager, and someone who's just going to come and you deal with the team, and we'll deal with everything else around it. So when I hear people say, I heard someone on Twitter say Daniel Farke from Mönchengladbach. I was like, Mönchengladbach, they get 50,000 every week. One of their players is an international. They're like one of the big. I'm baffled. They're not going to go for an old style type manager. They're going to go for a younger, in my opinion, a younger type coach, a Mick Beale type younger coach. That's sort of a bit of the trend at the moment. Let's go a bit younger, and we have that sort of coach, director of football above him, and all that. That's what they're going to go for.
To be fair to Beale, he's an excellent communicator, and I still enjoy talking to him every week. He's a really good guy to talk to. He's interesting, comes across well, and QPR, it was a good appointment. It was, because he's a coach, but he's also a communicator. And as Kevin said before, and when Mark Bircham was on it before, that football's about man management, and he had that ability to man manage. So someone who comes in has got to be able to be a young coach, but they've also got to be able to offer that man management. And the players respected Beale, where he's come from, who he's worked with. It all adds to the credibility from the dressing room. So that's going to be the issue they have. Who are they going to bring in? That's Neil Banfield's worked with Arsene Wenger for 20 years. Michael Beale's worked at two of the biggest clubs in the country. It gives credibility to who he is. If someone comes in and the players can look at it and go, well, Kev will be able to describe that far better than I can, but you need to have the run, not so much the runs on the board, but also the kind of the players' respect of where you come from, what you've done. To bring someone in that's just a young coach, up and coming coach, that isn't necessarily going to cut the mustard.
Look, when a manager comes in and it's brand new, everyone's on their toes. So everyone at QPR now, all the players are like, be giving it, like the fans, they'll be thinking, who are we going to get? Who are we going to get? Is he going to be? I'm not going to swear, but is he going to be all right? Or is he going to be a nice geezer? Do you know what I mean? And look, when a manager comes in and he's a nice bloke and he's a communicator and he talks to you properly and he says, Kevin, you're not playing because of this, that, and the other, and you'll say, okay, all right, well, I'll have to do this, that, and the other better, and then I'll get in the team. Do you understand? Or I've had managers come in and just go, no, you're not playing. You're like, well, why? And non-communicate and arrogant and stuff like that. So you're right. Football management is, I mean, everyone talks about coaching this. He's the best coach. And look, I play football all my life. You guys probably play football like everyone. In the end, and this is like the professionals. In the end, everyone wants just to play a match 8-a-side. That's all every footballer wants to do. They do all these tactics all day long, and then they just everyone's badgering the manager. Can we do an 8-a-side, Gaffer? Can we do an 8-a-side? That's all everyone talk every day. Come on, Gaffer. Come on, please. And then in the end, they go, yeah, all right. Then and everyone's like, hey, and everyone's buzzing. So all this,
yeah, sounds like my under-16s training as well. It really does.
This is like for kids. This is from any age group. Everyone just wants to play a match. So you do your tactics, and then you're badgering the manager, which my boys would be, my young lad and his, can we play a match? And we go, yeah, we'll play a match. And everyone's buzzing again. So, you know, you do your tactics, you do your individual work, and then you play a match, and then everyone's happy. It's not rocket science. And then this idea of a set piece coach and this, that, and the other. Yeah, okay. But if you ain't got anyone to head the ball out from like they didn't against Huddersfield, then what's the point having a set piece coach? That's my rant over
working well. I mean, only Beale will know his intentions and what they were when he took the QPR job. But I mean, I'm just reading the comments that he said to Sky Sports. He'd done an interview with them saying like he was extremely happy at the club, but there was a couple of opportunities that came along that were very difficult to turn down. And this one was impossible to turn down. And like you said, Ian, he's sort of talking about family reasons and how Glasgow's his home. But I mean, you look at everything in hindsight and it really doesn't look good. I mean, when he got the QPR job, he's speaking to the Glasgow media, praising up Rangers in his press conference when he's being unveiled as QPR manager. You know, like we said, he's going up to games, he's putting stuff all over his Instagram about Rangers. And it's just like, you know, in hindsight, when you look at what's happened now, it's really not a good look for him. I mean, I think, Kev, you kind of mentioned there, like, you know, it's been like 4 months. He's barely like changed a lot, really, because, you know, it's 4 months. He hasn't had a lot of time to change things. But are you a bit surprised at like just how quickly it all came about for him? Because obviously he's got a good reputation in the game, hasn't he? And like we knew when he come to QPR that he had that big reputation behind him. But, you know, it's not like they're seventh in the league. The form have been great recently. It's not like he's, you know, they were top of the league, obviously, and that was when Wolves come in. But are you a bit surprised by how quickly it's all come about? Or,
well, I mean, I'm not sure the Wolves job was he was actually turned it down, or I don't know if that was just to get his profile up high, because the Wolves job is you got what's his name, that super agent buying all the players in.
Yeah, Mendes. Yeah,
you got no sort of control out of anything. You're bottom of the league. You lose a few games, you're out. So I'm not too sure that he actually turned them down, or it was just maybe I don't fancy that because it ain't for me. Regarding the Glasgow Rangers job, it's in Scotland. It's a massive club, and you got to be all in Glasgow Rangers, and you just got to be one ahead of Celtic, and Celtic have to be one ahead of Glasgow Rangers. And if you ain't, you're in trouble. So it's a big risk for him, because at the moment I think Celtic are ahead of Rangers. I think Celtic will win the league this year, and you don't start next year well, you're under massive pressure. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, domestically, it's very different, isn't it? You're basically like QPR are competing against all these other clubs, whereas in Scotland, he's just competing against one other club, essentially, isn't he? And that's the pressure. And obviously, there's the European stuff as well that he's got to deal with. And I suppose that is the appeal of it as well as Europe. You know, we're not pretending that the Rangers job isn't an appealing job, but like I said, to jump ship so quickly it's just for me like. I just don't know why he went so big on the integrity and the loyalty stuff. Like he proper went for it in that interview he did with the club after he rejected Wolves. Like he really went hammer in, like to build his reputation up. And like it's, you know, seen the flag on Twitter, Kev. You know, his stock was sky high. Like everyone loved him. Everyone was like, you know, loyal. I mean, loyalty will be remembered.
Ian said it there 5 minutes ago. He comes across a very good communicator, and he says the right things, and he's not shy with the press, is he? He'll always give interviews, and he's on Twitter, he's on Well, he ain't on it now, but it's on Twitter, it's on Instagram. So, look, fair play to him. Let's move on.
Because the other thing, just one last thing on it. I mean, Van Bronckhorst was a proper player for Rangers. You know, played when they were very, very strong. You know, he got the Europa League final and won the Scottish Cup. And he's been sacked.
Exactly. I mean,
Something hasn't got any money to spend.
That's what I'm saying.
Now, Bill's look at this.
I don't think Rangers can. I think Celtic are 9 points ahead at the moment. It's a big gap, and Celtic are flying. They got the momentum. So to overcome that would be a hell of an achievement to finish top this year. I don't think they will. And then if you're struggling and you don't hit the ground running next season, at the start of next season, you're on the verge of getting sacked yourself.
But let's not make any bones about this. He's taking his job because it's a one step closer to him getting a Premier League job. All he's got to do is go up there, and it's a two-team competition. You finish above Celtic, you win the league, you're in Europe. You know, Steven Gerrard got the Villa gig on the back of winning one Scottish title. Brendan Rodgers got the Leicester gig of doing very well at Celtic. That it wouldn't surprise me at all. Now, if he's as good as a manager as he thinks he is, and does well, that he's saying similar things to Chelsea or someone like that.
Yeah, no.
I mean, Graham Potter's got the Chelsea job. Mick Beale was a Chelsea fan. And you'll hear the same thing again if all this happens and he's linked with the Chelsea job. I couldn't turn it down. It was big and this. I'm back home in London. All the same things. It's all part of the big game, all part of the big PR game.
Yeah, you do get the sense this is very much about his career trajectory and his plan for himself. That's what this is all about, really.
Oh, well, that's fair enough. He hasn't been honest with the integrity thing, and that's what's...
Yeah, that was the one, wasn't it? That quote was...
From the QPR fans. I mean, I got no problem with him doing that. Fair enough. But don't say in a month, and then I've got integrity, loyalty, I've got something to finish here, and then jump ship. That's what's
100%.
And I think if it just said nothing, and the Glasgow Rangers job came up, and he turns around and says, "I couldn't turn this job down," I think people would have said, "Fair enough." You know, yeah, whatever. You go, and there wouldn't be anywhere near the hullabaloo there has been about it. But as you say, that, you know, when you've got people like Simon Jordan praising you on the radio and Giles Corran writing columns about you in the Times saying how great it is and what a great man you are for staying, and then 3 weeks later you're on the train doing an interview for Rangers TV and using kind of Scottish slang to show how much of a Scotsman you are, and this is where my family live, and it just kind of is all out of old. I'm going to say,
I'm with you, Ian. Like, I think you used the word hoodwinked earlier. Like, I feel kind of the same because, like, I don't know. You like to think people are being truthful and honest, don't you? That's just how you live life. You like to, think people aren't just, taking you for a ride or whatever. But this whole experience has been like, it's just everything. When I look back at all the things he said, all the videos I've put together of, when you've spoken to him and all the things he said. Just so much in there that just turned out to be, I'm going to swear as well, it's just complete bullshit. It's all just like, do you know what I mean? It was. There was so. I was looking back yesterday at all the like videos we've done, and so like even I think like the most recent one we did when you spoke to him before was it Coventry? That was the last game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Before the World Cup. And he's saying how much he loves it at QPR, and I'm really enjoying this job, and this is I'm really comfortable in the role, and you're like, it's just like. It's maybe a lot more cynical, I think, actually, about the whole world of football. Kev, you probably knew all this already because you've been in football for a long time, but it has made me a lot more cynical about it.
I think you have to, if you're a manager, you have to be a bullshitter. Being serious.
It's one of the qualities of the job. I was going to ask you about, you touched on it already, but I was going to ask you about like what the qualities are that you should be looking for in a manager. So clearly that's one, bullshitter. That's a high quality.
They all are, but you got to be on the right side of it. Look, guys don't care if they're playing, and that's as simple as that. It's the ones who are not playing, that's the manager's got the problem. Not the problem, they got problems because they're knocking on his door, and then you got to deal with that. And the qualities of being a manager is dealing with those situations. And look, we just he's a good talker, isn't he? He was at QPR. Was a good talker. He probably was a good talker with the players, not only with the press, the players, but also with the people upstairs, the board. he was a good talker and probably told them what they wanted to hear. So qualities of a manager is, Ian said it, man management is so important. So
is that the biggest thing for you? Communication.
You got to get the players on side. You got to get the players running for you, go that extra yard for you. You get that, you got a chance of having a successful season.
Yeah, because I mean, so much of football nowadays is like the analysis that's done is like tactical and everything like that. But I think something that goes under the radar sometimes is it's in the job description, manager. It's like leadership and management skills. Is that, in your experience, having played, is that like the biggest thing for you when you look at all the like best managers you've had and the qualities they've had? Is that communication side of things? Is that number one for you? Do you think in terms of skills you need?
You got to have leadership. I mean, I look back and Jerry Francis, he had some big names there. He had Ray Wilkins playing for him, who was, a more successful player than Jerry. Maybe not at QPR, but in general. I mean, 84 caps, AC Milan and Man United and stuff. So I remember like every Tuesday, you probably heard about this, Ian, but we used to do, it's called Terror Tuesday, where we didn't even see a football. We just ran, sprinted, only for about 20 minutes. And I remember when I was younger and Ray Wilkins and Alan MacDonald used to come in and would be absolutely dreading it. And I think Jerry Francis was basically, you're doing it, I'm in charge, you're doing it. And that was sort of to say, look, Ray, I'm in charge. Get on that line and run. And you have to have that sort of self-confidence and leadership skills to be able to tell players like, Ray Wilkins, Alan MacDonald, Les Ferdinand, we're doing this, get on with it. But communication's massive. I think communication's massive even now, because I think the generation of footballers are a little bit softer than the older days. And I just believe that. And I think they need more, help, not more help, but more talking to them and explaining to them. Where in the old days, it was like, there's the team sheet, you're not playing, with no explanation why you're not playing. Unless you went and knocked on the manager's door and say, why am I not playing? I mean, I remember a good one, Cole Connolly. Remember Cole Connolly, Ian? He knocked on Jerry's door. He played the week before. He didn't play on a Saturday, knocked on his door and he went, all right, Gaffer, why am I not playing? He said, you missed 3 chances last week. Close the door on the way out. And that was the end of it. Where it's been difficult to get away with that to a younger player.
Yeah, I think it's changed, done it? Like the managers you see now coming through, people like Graham Potter, Gareth Southgate as well with England, they seem to be more, I guess, a bit of a cliche, but like arm around the shoulder, a bit more. That's what the impression you get. Do you know what I mean? The hard kind of hardline coach. It still exists, like I think lower divisions and stuff as well, but it does seem that it's not as common anymore. I think. But yeah, I mean, Ian, like, I mean, what next? Like, it's not. Like I said, it's not been too long since QPR were looking for a manager. So you imagine the list has changed a bit because certain managers that were probably on there have got jobs. What is it? Something should they be looking at a Beale type manager, someone to continue that? Do you think similar?
Yeah,
obviously, similar brief.
Yeah.
Is that the kind of guy they should be looking for?
Well, that's what the football clubs that have had success do. They have use the word succession program. So I know Brighton, for example, were always looking for Graham Potter's replacement.
Yeah,
fully expecting there's a chance we might lose Graham Potter. So you're looking around to see who's available, who might be the next one to come through. I mean, QPR aren't as advanced financially as Brighton are, and to be fair, they probably didn't think. No one expects to lose their coach after sort of 4.5 months in charge. But I mean, as I say, there will be agents contacting QPR. There'll be, you'll start to see names leaking on various newspaper websites and other non-reputable sites about,
not West London Sport, of course.
Potential managers that could be interested in a job or linked with the job. That's how it works. I mean, I've had it a few times this year as well. People come to me with emails from not West London clubs just saying, can you get something to someone that might be able to help my client get their name out? And that's how it works. Getting the names out. There's plenty of managers out at work.
Try and get the fans on side. Oh, it'd be good. You know what I mean? And
obviously, I mean, one good thing to come out of Bill going is, they've trousered £1.5 million in compensation for a bloke that's been there for 5 minutes, and they've not had to pay him off to leave. They've been remunerated by that, so they've got some money for him. So obviously, you kind of think that you want to be getting a manager that's out of work at the moment, or available, or a free agent, instead of having to pay compensation to someone else to get their manager. So, I mean, the two obvious ones that stick out will be, I quite like the guy who was at Wigan, Liam Richardson. I thought he did a really good job there. I thought he did a good job at Wigan, and I was impressed with the way Wigan set up when they played QPR. I thought they looked decent. He got them promoted last year, and he's
number one. He signed a new, was it 3.5-year deal, and then about a month later they sacked him.
Again, it just proves it. Loyalty is a two-way thing. You can't criticise a manager for being disloyal, and you see that sort of thing happening, and managers getting punted. I'm sure Chris Wilder's name will crop up. I like Chris Wilder. I think he's a really good manager. I'm not sure he's the right fit for what QPR are. He's not sure he wants to work with the director of football either, from reading between the lines at what happened at Middlesbrough. So, and then a man you could probably speak more fluently on, Neil Critchley, the former Blackpool manager who replaced Beale at Villa before Gerrard got the punt.
Absolutely. I mean,
they're the kind of guys, but it does seem that the age of the older football manager is sort of going out of big, isn't it? It's very much the kind of young ex-academy coaches.
I think it's the model. It's the model of the director of football in charge of all football related off the pitch, like transfers, and then you have an on-field manager or coach. That's the way football model's going at the moment. So the idea of having a manager who's in charge of everything, I think those days are getting few and far between.
I'm probably quite right as well.
Well, the thing about the manager situation and in charge is, once you get a manager in and he signs loads of players, and then 6 months later he gets sacked, and then the new manager comes in and goes, I don't want these players, and you have a big turnover of players, and it costs loads of money. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons of it is you now have a director of football. He signs the players with the recruitment, gives those players to the manager when he comes. There's your players. And then they have a discussion. What do you think you need? I might need a right back. I need an attacking midfielder. Goes back to the recruitment. These are the players that we think are to what you want and available and in our budget. And you go from there.
I mean, talking to Neil Critchley, that's how it worked at Blackpool. We have a director, CEO, sort of deals with that side of things, and then I think his title was head coach, and then he's the one who's like coaching the team and focusing on that side of things. But yeah, I mean, Critchley on West London Sport reported that he's a name that they're considering. I mean, it's strange because like no one's ever really found out why he left Blackpool. Like, I know, Kev, you're probably going to make a joke here about why wouldn't he leave Blackpool? But it's strange because I think a lot of people looked at that and thought that's like a really odd thing to do, because I know Blackpool's not the best job, but it's a decent job. The fans loved him, and he'd done a really good job the first year of the Championship, and then he leaves for the number 2 job at Villa, which obviously was vacated by Mick Beale. It just shows you how quickly things can change in football and how strange football is. That it's all that goes around in a circle.
And maybe they doubled his wages or tripled his wages.
Yeah, that's the cynical view, isn't it? That it was just about money, which it could be. He wasn't a player, so it's not like he earned the money from that. Kev.
Is that cynical? Would you move to East London Sport for 3 times the money?
I don't think there is one. Let's set one up.
It is cynical, but this is what happens. It's the facts.
But
no, absolutely. I mean, that's an argument, isn't it? Because he wasn't a player, so he wouldn't have had the playing career money behind him. So, but it's a strange one that he gave up a managerial job to go to a number 2 job, and that leaves a bit of doubt. But I mean, he's a fantastic coach. Don't get me wrong. He really is. Like the job he did at Blackpool. Like when we started, he was looking like he might get the sack because he was trying to play quite an open kind of attacking style of football, and then he decided that he'd quickly change things because it wasn't working. And like I know, like I see a couple of fans saying like, "Oh, like not sure his style of play suits our team." Like, 'cause he played like 4-4-2, but Like if he gets a job, I wouldn't read too much into that because I think his big quality is that he's very pragmatic. Like he kind of deals with the task at hand and he just focuses on getting the best out of the players he's got. So I don't think he's like necessarily going to, and like Blackpool are going to be less favourites, a lot less than QPR are in games this season in the Championship. So I wouldn't read too much into that.
Whatever manager comes in at QPR, he'll assess the players, he'll watch loads of videos of the previous games, and he ain't going to try and change the style and say, I'm going to go now long ball, because QPR ain't got the players for that.
Because he did that a bit at Blackpool, like, you know, but that's just the job at hand. It's like, we got to win games. We're not, you know, we're one of the favourites for relegation. It's just what you do, isn't it?
So any
QPR, everyone knows, get Willock and Chair on the ball. That's the way you win games.
And don't concede any goals.
Yeah.
No, but
get better at set pieces.
It's not, if any of us took over at QPR, you're not going to change the style of football. Oh, yeah. You know what the team is.
But the blueprint's there, isn't it? The format. It's there for you.
I mean, if we've done our first 11, everyone fit our first 11, there wouldn't be much difference between our first 11 and mine, Ian's, and yours.
It'd just be like a centre mid is the only debate, really, isn't it?
We might have a discussion about who's going to be in the three in the centre mid and who's going to play centre half. Other than that, the team picks itself. So I don't think whoever comes in ain't going to be like rocket science. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. No, just keep it going and how it is.
I think exactly. I think somewhere along those lines as well, because again, Bill's knowledge of the academy sort of systems, for want of a better word, that helps getting the Ethan Laird's, the Tim and Rubens in. So someone like a Critchley, also from that similar background. I know at Blackpool last year, they had some good loanees that did a good job for them. You know, who knows if QPR lose Laird and Rubenham in January because their clubs recall them for whatever reason. Having someone that knows, yes, actually, there's a a kid at Liverpool who,
he's very much that. That was his big part of the recruitment of Blackpool was that.
You know, when you're dealing with a tight budget, that's sort of what you need to have. You need to have that knowledge.
And his contacts, really. I mean, we're talking about so Beale knew about Tim from being at Aston Villa. There's your connection there. Now, Critchley probably speaks to people at Liverpool all the time, and they'll ring him up. We need a young lad. He needs to go out on loan. He'd be perfect for QPR. Then that would be Critchley's decision at Blackpool. Okay, we'll take him. So it's not like it's more connections. It's not like they're watching academy football every week, because they're not. It's more like connections. He's available on loan. Tim, you know him from Aston Villa. Yeah, you get on with him. Yeah, perfect. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Tim in January, whether he goes back to Aston Villa, gets in their squad, and Laird,
because they've got a new manager, and obviously QPR, Beale's gone, so there's a lot there that could potentially, so hopefully not, because he's been really good.
I think Laird would be a big miss, really big miss.
I think it depends if they sell Wan-Bissaka, doesn't it? That seems to be the one that could prove a problem for QPR, because they're trying to get him out, because obviously Ten Hag doesn't fancy him. But that's an interesting.
I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if Laird was called, to be honest.
It doesn't make a lot of sense, because he's doing so well at QPR and he's getting regular first team football every week, which he ain't going to get at United, is he?
He's never had a run of games like this in his career. He's had injuries and that, so he's playing regularly. And I think, from a long-term point of view for United, he's better off having a season at QPR where he plays 30 to 40 games, instead of going back and sitting back on their bench. That's how I think that will play out. With Rubenham, I mean, again, if Neil Critchley was to get the job, he's just left Villa, isn't he? So he's got contacts there to sort of say, well, so we'll see. Because the reason these clubs loan their players out is the players to get games. They want them to play. New manager will come in and say, I want to have a look at them. But if they're playing week in, week out elsewhere, then what better place to get a look at them properly?
And Villa have sent people down to
I know
aren't they, quite watch Peru with them.
Yeah, Mile Jednek, who's the head of loans for Villa, I've seen him 3 or 4 times this season watching him. So they are watching him, they know what they're seeing, but so we shall see on that. But I mean, there's a lot of conjecture out there. Bill's leaving, that means that we're going to lose Kenneth Powell. Absolute nonsense.
We're already sworn, mate.
At the end of the day, clubs lose their managers all the time. It shouldn't derail QPR season. It's a blow. It's disappointing and it's annoying, but it's it's happened during a break, which probably does help a little bit. You know, the gauge I was getting yesterday when I was down there for the Livingston friendly was that it'd be unlikely there's a manager in by the Burnley game, so I'd imagine you'll see Paul Hall in charge of the team. It just is hard, isn't it? You know, to get a new manager in and the contracts and everything.
Yeah. So what's it now? 12 days since Burnley. So it's not.
I may be completely wrong on that. I may be completely wrong on that, and they might have someone in play by the end of the week. But you know, I think they're reeling a little bit. I think they are. It's not an avenue they thought they'd have to explore this season. But you know, these things happen in football, and you know, but you know, no one man's bigger than a club, and as Kev said earlier on, managers shouldn't be holding the club to ransom. And yeah, in many ways, it's probably good he has gone. Thinking about it, because you know, if he's been linked with every single job
down the line, wouldn't it? It's happened now. It would have happened down the line.
Yeah,
so it's happened now. So it was going to happen because that's what he wants to do. So it's happened now. We move on. We move on right now instead of 6 months down the line.
Because I'm sure if Graham Potter carries on like this, he'll be under pressure. Mick Beale would have been linked with that job. And Jurgen Klopp's under pressure. He'd have been linked with that job as well, because it's just every club he's worked for, he's linked to be their manager. So
I know his reputation. That's what I say. I know his reputation is obviously very high, but I am surprised at how many jobs he's been linked with and how high his stock is. Like, I expect him to be linked with some jobs, but he's done a fantastic job of building his reputation. To be fair,
and that would probably be his agent doing that.
Well, he says he don't have any representatives, which I struggle to believe, because he's everywhere. He's
doing it on his own now.
Yeah, he must be a busy man.
It was quite interesting that the head of Rangers, the chairman of Rangers, saying best of luck to Michael and Ross Simpson. So the gauge there is this is the sporting director at Rangers, Ross Simpson, who's very tight with Beale.
So yeah, he's obviously got links there, I don't think to his advantage.
I don't think it's a unanimous call from everyone at Rangers for him to get the job. I think they were looking elsewhere, but you know, he's very tight with the sporting director there, and we all know how football works, networks, etc., etc. So it'd be interesting to see what he does up there. But yes, we don't have to talk about him ever again.
Yeah, that'll be it. That'll be it after this. But yeah, I mean, like Sean Critchley, Critchley seems to be the kind of continuity candidate, the one who's, you know, he's worked on a tight budget, which he'll have to do at QPR, and the whole academy links that we've just spoken about. So that's the way it seems like he's being viewed. But anyway, let us know what you think if you're watching about Beale's exit. But keep it clean, obviously. I don't have to moderate the comments too much. And let us know what you think about who should be in line for the job now and what you kind of want to see from the next manager. And do make sure you leave a like and subscribe as well if you're watching the video, and if you're listening to us, do follow our feed so you get up to date with the latest episodes wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll be back again soon, hopefully. Well, maybe not quite when they've got a new manager, but hopefully with a bit more news on that front. So thanks for watching and listening.